The slap cracked through the marble atrium so sharply that even the violinist stopped mid-note. 40 guests turned at once. Crystal glasses froze halfway to painted lips. In the center of the room, billionaire Adrian Vale's fiancée, Celeste Monroe, stood with one hand still raised and fury burning across her perfect face. Before her was the new maid, a quiet woman in a gray uniform who had not moved an inch after the blow. Celeste expected tears, an apology, lowered eyes. Instead, the maid slowly turned her face back toward her. Her name was Mara Ellis, and Celeste had just made the worst mistake of her life. Before we continue, tell us where you are watching from, and subscribe, because by the end of this night, everyone in that mansion would learn that a uniform can hide far more than weakness. 3 weeks earlier, Mara had arrived at the Vale estate carrying one small suitcase and a reference letter from a Chicago housekeeping agency. She was 32, calm-faced and quietly athletic. The head housekeeper noticed that she never dropped a tray, bumped a chair, or turned her back on an open doorway. To the staff, Mara was private but kind. She remembered the gardener's bad knee, left tea for the cook after late shifts, and once caught a falling silver tray before it hit the floor without spilling a glass. No one asked how she had moved so fast. The estate belonged to Adrian Vale, a 35-year-old technology billionaire whose company designed high-level security systems. Adrian was brilliant, controlled, and tired of people who wanted something from him. Investors wanted access. Relatives wanted favors. Reporters wanted scandals. Celeste wanted a wedding grand enough to place her name beside his forever. In public, she spoke about kindness. In private, she treated the household staff like furniture. Mara saw it on her second day when a young maid named Lila brought sparkling water instead of still. Celeste poured it into a flower pot and ordered the frightened girl to clean an already spotless carpet. Later, Mara found Lila crying in the linen room. "Don't let her decide what you are," Mara said. "People who make others feel small are usually afraid of being seen clearly." Lila looked at her. "You sound like you've met worse people." Mara gave a faint smile. "I have." Nobody at the estate knew that Mara had spent 9 years at one of Europe's most respected clothes protection academies. She had trained bodyguards, tactical officers, and the instructors who taught them. Then, 2 years earlier, a protection mission ended badly. Mara walked away and promised herself she would never build another life around violence. Being a maid was not humiliation to her. It was quiet, honest, and safe. But peace had never taught Celeste how to recognize danger. Adrian first noticed Mara during a stormy evening in the library. She was returning books when an old brass fixture broke loose above his head. Mara moved before he understood. She crossed the room, seized his shoulder, and pulled him aside just as the fixture crashed where he had been standing. Adrian stared at the twisted brass, then at her. That was fast. Lucky timing. That wasn't luck. Mara held his gaze. Then call it good balance. After that night, Adrian began noticing what others missed. Mara always knew where the exits were. She watched hands more than faces. When delivery workers entered, she studied their posture and waistlines. During a luncheon, a guest stumbled toward Adrian holding a broken champagne flute, and Mara appeared between them before security reacted. Celeste noticed Adrian noticing. Her jealousy did not begin because Mara flirted with him. She never did. It began because Adrian trusted her instincts. He thanked her by name, listened when she warned him about an unsecured side gate, and once laughed at a dry remark she made in the kitchen. That was enough. Celeste began setting traps. She accused Mara of scratching a designer table. She overloaded her trays during dinners. One night, she sent Mara into the wine cellar and locked the door for nearly an hour. Mara endured every insult with unsettling calm. That calm frightened Celeste more than anger would have. A week before Adrian's engagement gala, Celeste found Mara studying the estate's emergency floor plan in the private study. "What are you doing with that?" Celeste demanded. "The West Corridor alarm has a blind spot," Mara replied. "I was going to inform security." "You are a maid. You clean blind spots. You don't investigate them." Mara placed the map down. "Someone should." Celeste stepped closer. I know women like you. Quiet, calculating, waiting for a rich man to mistake obedience for loyalty. Mara's face remained calm. And I know people who confuse cruelty with authority. For the first time, Celeste had no answer. That evening, Celeste made a private call from the balcony. Mara passed the open doors carrying towels and heard only one sentence. "Do it during the gala," Celeste whispered. "By the time Adrian understands, the maid will be blamed." Mara kept walking, but beneath the towels her fingers tightened. The instincts she had buried for 2 years returned at once. Someone was planning something inside the Vale estate, and Celeste intended to make Mara take the fall. The gala was 6 days away. Mara had 6 days to uncover the plan without revealing who she really was. Upstairs, unaware that his future bride had already chosen a scapegoat, Adrian signed the final security approval for a night that would place 200 guests directly inside the trap. For the next 3 days, Mara watched the estate without appearing to watch anything at all. She polished mirrors while studying reflections. She carried laundry past the security office and memorized which guards left their posts. She served breakfast while listening to Celeste complain about flowers, seating charts, and the inconvenience of having staff breathe too loudly near her guests. Nothing looked dangerous. That made Mara more uneasy. Professional threats were usually hidden behind normal routines. A delivery arriving 5 minutes late. A door left unlocked once instead of twice. A worker who knew too much about rooms he had never entered. On Thursday morning, she found the first real clue. A catering van entered through the service gate without being checked. The driver wore the correct uniform, carried the correct documents, and greeted the guards by name. Yet his shoes were military issue, polished in a way no kitchen worker would bother with. Mara crossed the courtyard carrying folded tablecloths and deliberately dropped one near the van. As she bent to retrieve it, she saw the driver open the rear doors. Beneath stacks of wine crates sat 3 black equipment cases with no catering labels. The man noticed her looking. "Need help, miss?" he asked. Mara smiled mildly. "Just clumsy." His smile did not reach his eyes. That afternoon, she went to the security office and found Adrian reviewing final arrangements with his head of security, Malcolm Voss. Malcolm was a broad-shouldered former police officer who disliked staff entering his workspace. "The service gate inspection was skipped this morning," Mara said. Malcolm barely looked up. The supplier was cleared. The driver wasn't. Now Adrian raised his eyes. Malcolm leaned back. "And how would you know that?" He watched the cameras before looking at the house. Trained people check surveillance first. A brief silence followed. Malcolm gave a humorless laugh. "You've watched too many action films." Mara turned to Adrian. "Please inspect the black cases inside the van." "There were no black cases," Malcolm said too quickly. Mara's gaze shifted to him. Adrian noticed. Before he could respond, Celeste entered the office wearing a white silk dress and an expression of irritation. "What is she doing here?" "Mara saw something unusual at the gate," Adrian replied. Celeste's eyes sharpened for half a second before she laughed. "Of course she did. She's been wandering around like she owns the estate." "I'm trying to prevent a security problem," Mara said. "You are creating one." Celeste stepped closer. "Leave." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Celeste." "No, Adrian. She has spent days inserting herself into matters that don't concern her. First the floor plans, now delivery vehicles. What comes next? Will she inspect our bank accounts?" Mara remained still, but she understood something important. Celeste was not merely annoyed. She was afraid. That evening, Mara searched the service corridor beside the ballroom. She found fresh scratches around a locked storage room handle, as though someone had recently replaced the mechanism. When she pressed her ear against the door, she heard metal sliding across metal. A voice behind her said, "Looking for something?" Mara turned. Malcolm stood at the end of the corridor. His right hand rested near his jacket. Mara's posture remained relaxed. "Cleaning supplies. They're kept downstairs." "Then I'm lost." He walked closer. You don't look lost. For several seconds, neither moved. Mara studied the angle of his shoulders, the weight placed on his back foot, the faint outline beneath his jacket. Alert. Expecting resistance. Malcolm stopped 2 steps away. Whatever you think you've seen, forget it. That sounds like advice from someone who knows what I saw. His expression hardened. People disappear from good jobs because they become curious. Mara smiled faintly. People also make mistakes when they threaten someone before learning who they are. Something changed in Malcolm's face. Not fear. Recognition. Before he could question her, footsteps approached. Celeste appeared from the ballroom, and Malcolm immediately stepped away. There you are, Celeste said coldly. I've been looking everywhere. Mara knew that was a lie. Celeste held out a velvet jewelry box. My diamond bracelet is missing. You cleaned my dressing room this morning. I didn't touch your bracelet. Then you won't mind if we search your room. Within minutes, half the household staff had gathered outside the small room assigned to Mara. Celeste entered first, opened Mara's suitcase, and began throwing clothes onto the floor. Adrian arrived just as Celeste pulled the missing diamond bracelet from beneath Mara's folded uniform. Lila gasped. Several servants looked away. Celeste raised the bracelet triumphantly. There. Exactly where I knew it would be. Adrian stared at Mara. Tell me the truth. I am. Celeste turned on him. You cannot seriously believe her. Mara looked at the bracelet, then at Celeste's hand. A faint gray mark stained Celeste's thumb. Graphite. The lock on Mara's door had been picked. She planted it, Mara said. Celeste's face twisted. How dare you? Mara walked to the door and pointed at the keyhole. Fine silver scratches surrounded the metal. Someone opened this with a graphite-coated lockpick. The residue is still on your hand. Every eye dropped to Celeste's thumb. For one terrible second, Celeste had no answer. Then Malcolm stepped into the doorway. That proves nothing, he said. The bracelet was found in her belongings. Remove her from the estate. Adrian looked from Celeste to Malcolm, confusion giving way to suspicion. Mara understood the trap now. The bracelet was never meant only to get her fired. It was meant to remove her before the gala. She met Adrian's eyes. Do not let tomorrow's event begin. Celeste laughed nervously. Listen to her. A thief giving orders. Mara ignored her. Those black cases are inside the ballroom storage room. Malcolm is involved. And whatever they contain will be used while your guests are trapped inside. Malcolm reached for Mara's arm. The moment his fingers touched her wrist, she moved. Not enough to expose everything. Just enough. She turned his hand, shifted her weight, and forced the head of security to one knee before anyone understood what had happened. The room fell silent. Mara released him immediately. Malcolm rose, red-faced and furious. Adrian stared at her with shock. Celeste stared with something closer to terror. Mara slowly removed her maid's apron. I tried to warn you quietly, she said. Now we are out of time. From somewhere below them, deep inside the ballroom walls, came a heavy metallic click. Then every light in the estate went out. Darkness swallowed the Vale estate. For half a second, nobody moved. Then Lila screamed, someone knocked over a chair, and Malcolm reached beneath his jacket. Mara heard the fabric shift. She caught his wrist before he could draw the weapon. Malcolm drove his shoulder toward her, but Mara stepped aside, trapped his elbow, and slammed him against the wall. The gun dropped onto the carpet. She kicked it beneath the bed and twisted his arm behind his back. Emergency lights should have activated, she said. Why didn't they? Malcolm struggled. Get off me. That wasn't an answer. A faint red glow appeared in the hallway as the backup system finally activated. Adrian stared at Malcolm pinned against the wall, then at the weapon beneath the bed. Celeste's face had gone completely pale. Adrian, she said quickly, you have to understand. Malcolm carries a gun because he runs security. Then why was he drawing it on an unarmed maid? Adrian asked. She attacked him. Mara released Malcolm only after taking the second pistol hidden at his ankle. She checked the magazine with practiced efficiency and placed both weapons on the dresser. Adrian watched every movement. "Who are you?" he asked. Mara met his eyes. "Someone who knows this blackout was planned." A crash echoed from the ground floor. Then another. Mara turned toward the hall. "Stay here." Celeste stepped in front of her. "You are not giving orders in my house." "It isn't your house yet." The words struck harder than a slap. Celeste's expression changed, and for the first time, Mara saw the hatred beneath all the polish. Malcolm lunged from behind. Mara moved without looking. She caught his arm, dropped her weight, and sent him over her shoulder. He hit the carpet hard enough to lose his breath, but not hard enough to break anything. Lila covered her mouth. Adrian stared at Malcolm lying helplessly on the floor. Mara looked down at him. "The next time you approach me from behind, I won't be this gentle." She hurried toward the ballroom. Adrian followed despite her warning. The backup lights painted the corridor blood red. At the bottom of the staircase, two men in catering uniforms were forcing open the private gallery doors. One held a metal case. The other carried a compact rifle. Mara pushed Adrian behind a marble pillar. "Stay down." The armed man turned. Mara grabbed a silver serving tray from a side table and threw it. The tray struck his wrist as he fired. The shot tore into the ceiling. Before he could aim again, Mara crossed the distance, redirected the rifle, drove her elbow into his chest, and swept his legs from under him. The second man opened the equipment case, reaching for something inside. Mara seized the rifle strap, pulled the weapon away, and struck him across the hand with its stock. A small electronic device fell from his fingers. Adrian picked it up carefully. "What is this?" "A signal jammer," Mara said. "It disables phones, cameras, and alarms." The first intruder tried to rise. Mara pressed one knee against his shoulder and removed a radio from his belt. A voice crackled through it. "West Wing secured. Waiting for Sterling." Adrian slowly looked toward the staircase. Celeste stood above them. For the first time since Mara had known her, she had no insult ready. "Sterling," Adrian repeated. "That's your name." Celeste gripped the railing. Anyone could have said that. Mara opened the black equipment case. Inside were copied security badges, restraints, smoke canisters, and a detailed floor plan of the estate. A red circle surrounded Adrian's private vault. Beside it lay a photograph of Mara. Across her face, someone had written, "Primary suspect." The plan became clear. During the gala, the men would cut the power, disable the cameras, empty Adrian's vault, and leave enough planted evidence to make it appear that Mara had organized the robbery. Celeste would become the terrified fiancée who survived an attack. Malcolm would control the investigation. Adrian looked at Celeste as though he had never seen her before. "You planned to rob me?" "No," Celeste said. "This is insane." Malcolm appeared at the top of the stairs, one hand pressed against his injured shoulder. "You should have fired the maid when I told you," he said. Celeste spun toward him. "Be quiet." The order confirmed more than any confession could have. Adrian's expression hardened. "How long?" Celeste descended one step at a time, abandoning panic for cold control. "You were never supposed to be hurt," she said. "The vault would be emptied, the insurance would pay, and that woman would disappear into prison." Lila gasped from the hallway. Adrian's voice dropped. "Why?" "Because you were going to change the company trust after the wedding." Celeste's eyes burned. "Your grandfather convinced you to keep control of everything. I would have spent years smiling beside you while your family treated me like a guest. So you decided to steal from me. I decided to take what should have become mine." Mara picked up the radio. "How many men?" Celeste smiled faintly. "You still think this is about tonight?" Mara's instincts sharpened. Celeste looked toward Adrian. Tonight was only a test. The real operation begins tomorrow, when 200 guests are inside and every exit is sealed. Adrian glanced at the cases. Then cancel the gala. You can't, Malcolm said. He held up a small black controller. Mara recognized it immediately. A remote trigger. 3 devices are already hidden inside the ballroom, Malcolm continued. If the police enter, if the guests are warned, or if Miss Ellis tries another heroic move, the entire East Wing burns. Adrian went still. Mara studied Malcolm's grip, the distance between them, and the tiny pressure switch beneath his thumb. A dead man trigger. If he released it, the devices could activate. Celeste walked down the final step and stopped in front of Mara. All fear had vanished from her face. You thought you were protecting him, she whispered. But now you are the reason everyone stays exactly where I want them. Then, with a cruel smile, Celeste raised her hand and slapped Mara across the face. The sound echoed through the red-lit hall. Mara slowly turned back toward her. Celeste expected anger. Instead, Mara smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a woman who had finally stopped pretending to be harmless. You should have done that before showing me the trigger, Mara said quietly. And for the first time, Celeste understood that she had not trapped a maid. She had trapped herself inside a house with an elite combat instructor. The red emergency lights made the atrium look like a warning no one had listened to. Malcolm stood 10 feet away, his thumb pressed against the dead man trigger. Celeste remained beside him, breathing hard after the slap. Mara touched the corner of her lip. A thin line of blood appeared. Then she studied Malcolm's hand. The controller had a pressure plate. If he released it, 3 incendiary devices hidden in the ballroom would ignite. If Mara rushed him, everyone in the East Wing could die. So she lowered her hands. You win, she said. Celeste laughed. I knew you would remember your place. Mara looked at Adrian. Do exactly what they say. Adrian's eyes narrowed. He knew Mara did not surrender. Malcolm ordered them into the ballroom. 200 chairs waited for tomorrow's gala beneath an enormous chandelier. 3 men in catering uniforms emerged from behind the stage. One held Lila by the arm. Mara, the frightened maid whispered. Look at me, Mara said calmly. Keep breathing. Celeste walked to the center of the room. Tomorrow, the lights will fail. Smoke will fill the east corridor. While the guests panic, Malcolm's team will empty Adrian's vault. And blame Mara, Adrian said. Her fingerprints are already on the copied badges, Celeste replied. A mysterious maid with combat training? The police will build the rest for us. Mara scanned the room. She smelled accelerant beneath the musician's platform. A second device was probably near the curtains. The third was hidden somewhere above them. She also noticed Malcolm's thumb trembling. Why keep us alive tonight? Mara asked. Adrian still has to open the vault, Celeste said. He won't. He will when Malcolm puts a gun against Lila's head. Adrian stepped forward, but Mara blocked him. Celeste smiled. Still protecting everyone. You don't understand protection, Mara said. I understand power. No. You understand fear. That's why you need armed men, locked doors, and someone else's money to feel important. Celeste's face tightened. Mara continued, holding her attention. Your plan only works if everyone behaves exactly as expected. Adrian opens the vault. Malcolm stays loyal. Your men keep quiet. And the maid stays afraid. She took one slow step closer. Stop, Malcolm warned. Mara stopped. Celeste approached and slapped her again. This time Mara allowed the blow to turn her head. Tomorrow, Celeste whispered, you will confess in front of everyone. Mara looked back at her. Good. Celeste blinked. A confession requires cameras, Mara said. And you already told us the jammer disables them. Malcolm glanced toward the ceiling. That was all Mara needed. The cameras were still recording. Adrian understood. He looked at the nearest lens. Everything in this room is on video. Panic flashed across Celeste's face. "Kill the feed," she shouted. One man ran toward the control panel. Mara rolled a champagne bottle hard across the floor. It struck his ankle. He stumbled into the curtain switch, and the heavy drapes swept open. The second incendiary device was exposed behind them. At the same moment, Mara kicked a chair into the knees of the man holding Lila. His grip loosened. Lila dropped and crawled away. Malcolm raised the trigger. Mara tore a weighted table runner free and snapped it around his wrist. She pulled just enough to force his thumb deeper against the pressure plate, then closed the distance. Malcolm swung. Mara slipped beneath his fist, trapped his elbow and locked his arm without disturbing the controller. "Adrian," she said. "Take his thumb." Adrian rushed forward and pressed his thumb over Malcolm's. Mara peeled Malcolm's fingers away one by one. The transfer lasted 4 seconds. When Adrian held the controller securely, Mara drove Malcolm onto a banquet table and bound his wrists. The remaining men charged. Mara redirected the first man's punch into the second attacker, swept one leg and sent the third over her hip into a row of chairs. Within seconds, all 3 were down. Not dead. Not badly injured. Unable to continue. Celeste backed away, staring at Mara as though the uniform had finally become transparent. "What are you?" she whispered. Mara removed the pins from her hair. "For 9 years, I trained close protection teams for diplomats, judges, and government officials," she said. "I taught armed professionals how to survive rooms exactly like this." Adrian stared at her. "I left after a mission cost innocent people their lives," Mara continued. "I chose a life where nobody needed me to hurt anyone." She looked directly at Celeste. "But you mistook restraint for weakness." Sirens sounded beyond the estate gates. Celeste turned toward the windows. Mara nodded toward Lila, who held a small emergency transmitter. "The fire alarm uses a separate frequency. You disabled the phones. You forgot the kitchen staff." Celeste's composure shattered. She ran toward the side exit. Adrian moved to stop her, but Malcolm kicked the controller from his hand. The black device spun across the marble. Adrian reached for it. Too late. The pressure plate rose. A violent click sounded beneath the stage. Smoke poured from behind the curtains. Mara looked up and saw flames catch the rigging above the chandelier. Only then did she understand the final device. It had not been placed to trap the guests. It had been placed to bring the entire chandelier down. Directly over Adrian. The first chain snapped like a rifle shot. The chandelier tilted above Adrian, raining sparks and burning glass. He froze beneath it, one hand reaching for the fallen trigger. Mara ran. She struck him at the waist and drove them both across the marble just as the chandelier crashed behind them. Crystal exploded through the ballroom, slicing Mara's sleeve and setting the curtains alight. Adrian saw blood running down her arm. "You're hurt. Later." Mara seized a fire extinguisher while Lila activated the sprinklers. Adrian dragged burning fabric away from the stage, and together they stopped the flames from reaching the second device. Across the room, Celeste was still running. She reached the side doors just as police and fire crews entered. 2 officers ordered her to stop. Celeste turned, saw Mara standing through the smoke, and grabbed a decorative sword from the wall. She charged. Mara waited until Celeste swung, stepped inside the blade's arc, trapped her wrist, and twisted the sword to the floor. One controlled movement brought Celeste to her knees. The woman who had slapped a maid twice now knelt before her in front of the staff, police, and cameras. "Do it," Celeste hissed. "Hit me. Show everyone what you really are." Mara looked down at her. "No. You already showed them what you are." She released her and stepped away. The officers handcuffed Celeste. Malcolm and the 3 intruders were arrested, while firefighters disabled the remaining devices. Investigators recovered forged access cards, copied vault codes, financial transfers to Malcolm, and recordings of Celeste arranging the robbery. The ballroom cameras had captured her confession, her threats against Lila, and both slaps. By sunrise, She had nothing left to deny. Outside the estate, paramedics wrapped Mara's arm while Adrian watched Celeste being placed inside a police vehicle. "I should have listened," he said. "You trusted the man hired to protect you. I trusted the wrong people and doubted the right one. You barely knew me. I knew enough to notice you never lied." Mara's expression softened, but she did not let the moment become something it had not earned. "I came here for peace," she said. "After tonight, this house won't give me that." Adrian understood. "You're leaving." "Yes." He wanted to ask her to stay. Instead, he nodded. Respecting her meant allowing her to choose her own future. The engagement gala was cancelled. Celeste and Malcolm were later charged with conspiracy, attempted robbery, assault, unlawful imprisonment, and reckless endangerment. The other men testified against them. Celeste's public image collapsed, but Mara rejected every interview. She did not want fame for surviving another violent room. 3 months later, she rented a training hall in Chicago and opened the Ellis Protection Institute. It was not a secret academy. Mara taught domestic workers, nurses, hotel employees, and young women how to recognize danger, escape restraints, and protect others without losing control. Her first 12 students attended free. Lila was among them. Adrian supported the program anonymously, but Mara discovered the donation when she recognized his company's lawyers on the scholarship documents. She called him. "You promised no interference." It wasn't interference. It was a scholarship fund. For 50 students. "I may have miscalculated." Mara laughed before she could stop herself. It was the first time Adrian heard that sound without danger around them. Their relationship did not begin with a dramatic declaration. Adrian visited only when invited. He helped install security, carried equipment, and learned to follow Mara's instructions like every other student. Months passed before she told him why she had left combat work. During a protection mission, a wealthy client ignored her evacuation order. 2 guards died while Mara tried to save him, and she had blamed herself ever since. Adrian listened quietly. "You didn't leave because you were weak," he said. "You left because you were still human." A year after the fire, the Vale Ballroom reopened, not for another engagement party, but for the Institute's first graduation ceremony. 100 women crossed the restored floor beneath a smaller chandelier. Housekeepers stood beside executives. Waitresses stood beside lawyers. No uniform decided anyone's worth. Mara addressed them from the same place where Celeste had slapped her. "Strength is not proving you can hurt someone," she said. "It is knowing you could and choosing control. It is speaking when silence becomes permission, and protecting people who may never be able to repay you." Adrian watched from the front row. After the ceremony, he met her beneath the chandelier. "No guards tonight?" she asked. "I brought the best instructor I know." "You still can't block a wrist lock." "I'm improving." Mara smiled and took his hand. There was no public proposal and no reward handed to her for being brave. There were only 2 people choosing each other slowly, honestly, and as equals. Above them, warm light spread across the repaired marble. A year earlier, Celeste had slapped what she believed was an ordinary maid. She had been wrong about many things. But she was right about one. Mara Ellis was the wrong woman to underestimate.